Why do married women become the easiest prey? It's not what you think, and it's time to expose the truth. Because the reality is many women who are married women who are supposed to be secure, fulfilled, and happy are actually the most vulnerable. They are often the easiest to manipulate, the easiest to control, and the easiest to break. And if you think this is about weakness, you're wrong. This is about a system that sets them up to fail. A cycle that conditions them to sacrifice, to put others first, to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders while receiving little in return. And if no one talks about it, nothing will ever change. But today, we are going to change that. There is something that happens when a woman gets married. The expectations shift. Society tells her that she must now be the glue, the nurturer, the one who keeps it all together. She gives, she compromises, she works tirelessly to make things right even when they are far from right. And somewhere along the way, she loses pieces of herself. Not because she wants to, but because it feels necessary. She stops prioritizing her own dreams, her own desires, her own needs. She puts them on a shelf, promising herself she will get back to them later. But later never comes. This is the point at which the vulnerability starts. The easiest prey is a lady who has spent years putting other people before herself, because she's worn out, due to her neglect, because she has been taught that it is selfish to seek more for herself. And it's not about attraction when someone shows up who notices her, listens to her, and gives her a sense of purpose again. It has to do with approval. It's about her intense desire to believe that she still matters and has value outside of her duties. And it begins like this. Manipulation starts like this. Ignoring this has terrible repercussions. A woman becomes docile when she is taught to disregard her own wants and to keep quiet. Pray for anyone who wants to exploit them. It occurs in friendships, marriages, and workplaces. It occurs everywhere, and the harm is severe. She begins to think that this is the nature of things, that no one would ever genuinely give back to her, and that her job is to give and give. This explains why so many women experience inner emptiness. This explains why a lot of women wake up one day and find they no longer recognize themselves. And since they are unaware that there's another option, a lot of women continue to remain in poisonous, exhausting, and slowly degrading circumstances. However, there is an alternative. Additionally, it begins with a change in perspective. It begins with realizing that a woman's value is not determined by the amount of sacrifice she makes. Losing oneself should never be the goal of that love. Balance, not servitude, is the hallmark of a true partnership. Setting limits is necessary for this. It entails refusing without feeling guilty. It entails recovering the aspects of oneself that have been suppressed by years of duty and anticipation. It entails making your own decisions every day, not just when it's convenient. One of the most significant acts of self-awareness and development is when a woman takes the time to recognize what she has been ignoring. Life, personal aspirations, interests, and objectives are frequently pushed to the side by obligations and outside expectations. However, these dreams never really go away. Instead, they stay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for her to choose to take them back. Restoring a vital aspect of oneself that has been forgotten in the rigors of daily life is the goal of the rediscovery process, which goes beyond just satisfying a craving or reigniting an old enthusiasm. Reviving these dreams is a survival strategy as much as a self-care practice. A woman who consistently forgoes her own goals and happiness in favor of she may experience feelings of exhaustion, invisibility, and disassociation from her own self. Her self-esteem, sense of purpose, and even her capacity to see her own value are gradually undermined by this neglect. However, she is fundamentally reclaiming her power when she decides to prioritize her personal fulfillment, invest in herself, and resurrect what she once loved. Everything changes when a woman begins prioritizing herself. The change is unquestionably external as well as internal. Those who use her generosity, tolerance, and altruism no longer find her an easy target. She ceases to permit others to decide what she should focus or to dictate her value. She no longer tolerates people, relationships, and events that deplete her energy or make her feel inferior. Rather, she enters a fully empowered, completely present, and fully aware version of herself. She is no longer susceptible to manipulation as a result of this change. She no longer compromises her well-being in order to appease others. She no longer feels bad about establishing limits, saying no, or leaving circumstances that don't work for her. Continue to serve her. She turns into a powerful, resolute, and unstoppable force. A woman who has discovered her voice, her passion, and her identity is uncontrollable. Knowing that her life is her own and that she deserves every bit of happiness, prosperity, and fulfillment she chooses to create, she walks the world with assurance, exuding self-assurance and purpose. Fundamentally, the message recognizes that encouragement is not always given for personal development and self-empowerment. Rather, they frequently make other people uncomfortable, particularly those who profited from a woman's compliance, selflessness, or too accommodative. A woman disrupts established dynamics in relationships, the job, and cultural norms when she asserts her own strength. People may criticize, shame, or manipulate her as a result of this disturbance, calling her selfish, or attempting to make her feel bad for prioritizing herself. The statement, "because a woman becomes dangerous when she refuses to be controlled," is especially potent. It implies that when women continue to play conventional roles and conform to norms that make them tiny and manageable, society is frequently more at ease. A woman who rejects these norms and puts her voice first, her wants and needs turn into a driving force for transformation. For people who have depended on her being dependable and obedient, the fact that she is no longer either can be frightening. The poem does, however, also present an empowering reality. A woman need not remain little to get true love and support. Those who genuinely care about her won't be afraid of her development. Rather, they will support her because they understand that her progress is something to be honored rather than repressed. Her well-being was never genuinely important to those who react with bitterness, criticism, or attempts to minimize her. Instead, they were only interested in how she met their needs. This statement is essentially an exhortation to women to unabashedly embrace their power. Although it serves as a filter between those who genuinely support them and those who merely desire them in a decreased version, it also serves as a reminder that resistance is a normal reaction to change. It serves as a reminder that while regaining control may not always be simple, it is always worthwhile. We must quit settling for less. This assertion urges people to stop settling for mediocrity in their relationships, careers, and overall lives. It tests the reader's ability to identify when they are undervaluing themselves and drives them to expect better. Tolerating unfulfilling circumstances, such as a work that doesn't compensate you for your value, a relationship that doesn't support you, or friendships that drain rather than elevate, is frequently what it means to accept less. This sentence is a call to action to set higher standards and shun anything that doesn't correspond with one's value. The days of apologizing for wanting more are over. Women are frequently conditioned by society to be modest, thankful for what they have, and to avoid coming out as demanding or greedy. This sentence immediately questions that attitude. It makes the claim that there is no reason to feel bad about wanting more, whether that desire is for greater love, respect, prosperity, or happiness. This statement contradicts the stereotype that women's needs should come second to those of others. It's about accepting oneself and shamelessly pursuing one's goals. And it's time to remember that the strongest force on earth is a woman who understands her value. This statement of the great power that results from self-awareness is the message's climax. A lady who recognizes her worth won't let herself be devalued, mistreated, or manipulated. She refuses to let fear or uncertainty rule her, demands respect, and demands better treatment. Since doubt no longer holds her back, she is a force of nature. History and contemporary culture have repeatedly demonstrated that women can become leaders, revolutionaries, and game changers if they realize their value. Since she is no longer the victim, she can't be stopped. The past and present are contrasted sharply in this last phrase. Being prey implies vulnerability, possibly putting one at the mercy of others, physically, socially, or emotionally. Many women have experienced being like prey in circumstances where they felt helpless, exploited, or silenced at some point in their life. However, that relationship shifts when a woman realizes her value. She is no longer a person who can be exploited, influenced, or managed. Rather, she is an irresistible force that advances with strength, confidence, and purpose, unfazed by the constraints or opinions imposed upon her. Listen to this if you are a married lady or you know someone who has been having difficulties. This statement establishes immediate involvement from the outset. It recognizes that women who are married but might be having problems are the target audience for this message. Additionally, it invites anyone who knows such women, friends, family, or even husbands, to pay close attention. This instantly increases the message's power and makes it applicable to more people than just the woman in issue. We're not here to drain you. This is a straightforward yet meaningful remark. Married women, particularly those who put their family first, frequently find themselves in a state of emotional, physical, and even psychologically weary. They end up exhausted with nothing left for themselves because they devote so much of themselves to their marriages, kids, and obligations. This sentence states unequivocally that this is not their life's goal. They were never intended to exist only to provide energy to others at the expense of their own needs. Living under the shadow of other people's expectations is not why you are here. This line is even more profound. Women may be expected to act in certain ways by society, culture, family customs, and even interpersonal interactions. Ought to give up, and how much of themselves they ought to sacrifice. Because they are always attempting to satisfy the expectations of others, whether they be their spouse, in-laws, or society's conventions, many women lose their sense of themselves. That is categorically denied by this remark. Women were not created to simply follow someone else's script, as it loudly asserts. They are given the freedom to establish their own life, come out of suffocating roles, and into the light. Your purpose is to shine. This is a change in the direction of empowerment. This remark shifts the focus after dismissing the idea that a woman's life is about being exhausted or living in someone else's shadow, returning to her actual goal of shining. Women are encouraged to embrace their own potential, abilities, aspirations, and genius. It implies that individuals have something special and worthwhile to contribute, and that their life should be full of life rather than being tempered by fatigue or expectations. To prosper, surviving is not the same as thriving. In difficult relationships or stressful situations, many women find themselves in survival mode, juggling their obligations and repressing their own needs in order to get by each day. This statement, however, contradicts that way of thinking. It informs them that they are destined to thrive, develop, and lead a happy and satisfying life. To thrive, one must embrace happiness, meaning, self-care, and individual achievement. Entails refusing to accept anything less than what they are due. To take back everything that is yours. Here, the phrase reclaim is essential. It recognizes that something, whether it be happiness, freedom, self-worth, confidence, or even self-love, has been taken away. This is about reclaiming what should have always been theirs, not about demanding something that was never theirs. This might be their right to happiness, their voice, their tranquility, their freedom to make decisions without feeling guilty, or their passions. It suggests that instead of looking for approval or outside affirmation, women can regain control over their life. And you will beginning today. The moment of action is this last statement. It doesn't allow for hesitancy, justifications, or waiting for the ideal moment. It proclaims that transformation has begun. This is a clear directive, not just a message of optimism. It informs the woman who reads it that she can change right now, and that she doesn't have to put off finding happiness any longer. It inspires a sense of urgency, self-assurance, and drive to begin the process of self-reclamation. Overall takeaway, this text discusses self-worth, empowerment, and overcoming social, mental, or emotional barriers that prevent women from living completely. It acknowledges the difficulties that many married women encounter, but it also forbids them from continuing to live in a vicious circle of fatigue and neglect. Rather, it inspires, encourages, and empowers them to take charge of their lives. It is a wake-up call as much as a consoling message.